July is definitely the time to hit the clearance rack, my friends. Look at this. Hi, it's Steph, and I'm at Lowe's. And it is now July, and they have a whole new shipment of beautiful perennials and shrubs, and even some things on the clearance rack. So let's go through and look at the July inventory at Lowe's. Check out this beautiful phlox by Proven Winners. This is the Luminary Ultraviolet, and it has a really gorgeous deep magenta color with a hint of purple. It is so beautiful. Now, there are different bloom times for phlox. Currently, the tall garden phlox is coming into bloom and looking really beautiful. There's several varieties out there that you can choose from. They come in different colors as well as different heights. The important thing to know about phlox is you want to give it proper spacing so that it has good airflow around the plant, because they are susceptible, some varieties, to powdery mildew. Now, this Proven Winners variety and some of the new varieties have been bred to be more disease and mildew resistant, powdery mildew resistant. So you shouldn't have that much of an issue, but I would still recommend giving phlox and plants like bee balm proper spacing. But this is a real pretty one, and that open center makes it a real great pollinator plant. And these here get to be, let's see how big. They need full sun. Most phlox need full sun. The only one that you can get away with a little bit less sun is usually like a woodland phlox. And it gets to be 32 to 36 inches in height, needs 28 to 32 inch spacing, and it is hardy in zones 3 through 8 or down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And these are 1 gallon containers for $15.98. Some daylilies. Now, daylilies get their names because each bloom only lasts a day, but as you can see, there are tons of bloom buds on each plant. They're also super prolific. Not only do they grow really fast and you're able to divide them and get more plants out of them, but they get tons of blooms. You do have to protect these buds from deer if you deal with deer in your garden, because daylilies are like deer candy. But this variety is really beautiful. Look at that. Now, daylilies come in different bloom times as well as different heights. So you can get short, medium, and tall varieties depending on where you want to place them in the border. And they also come in an early, mid-season, and late-season blooming varieties. So if you really like daylilies, you can extend the amount of time that you have them blooming in your garden. This one here is the Proven Winners Rainbow Rhythm Storm Shelter Daylily, and it likes full sun. It is $15.98 for 1 gallon, and this variety gets to be 24 inches in height, so is medium height, meaning it could be like the second row of a border. Needs 18 to 24 inch spacing, and it is hardy in zones 3 through 9 down to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And this one blooms midsummer. And the daisy, a quintessential cottage garden flower and a staple perennial in any garden or border. Now, they come in different heights, and this one here happens to be the Amazing Daisy's Banana Cream by Proven Winners. And you can see that it has a little bit of a creamy yellow color to it, and that is the banana cream, and it is really pretty. Now, this looks to be a shorter stature type daisy, but it could just be that it's in a 1 gallon container. Let's take a look at the specs on this one. So daisies in general do like full sun, and this one gets to be 20 to 24 inches in height, so it is a medium-sized daisy. It needs 20 to 22 inch spacing, hardy in zones 5 through 9 or down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and it blooms early summer through late summer. Now, you can see this here, the 1 gallon container is $15.98, but right behind me, if you wanted a larger display of these beautiful daisies, they also have the larger container here. These look like a, 3 gallon for $24.98. And these are look to be the full height of about 24 inches, but really beautiful coloring on these daisies. I can see how this would pair beautifully with purple and pink flowers in the border. And if you prefer a more pure white daisy, which is more of a traditional colorway for them, they also have the Amazing Daisy's Daisy May. And the Daisy May, from what I recall, is also one of those medium height daisies. Let's check it out. So they like full sun as well. And yep, 12 to 24 inches in height, and they need 10 to 14 inch spacing. Hardy in zones 5 through 9 or down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and they bloom early summer through late summer. Now, the traditional Shasta daisies can get a little bit taller, anywhere from 3 to 4 feet in height, and at times do require some staking. So if you like the look of a daisy, but you want something that stays more upright and compact, these might be a great option. And the Amazing Daisy's Daisy May are in a 1 gallon for $15.98. And some beautiful Yarrow, also known as Achillea. Now these look like strawberries to me from further away. Look at that. Really pretty. Not only do I love the ferny foliage that this perennial provides, which is such a nice contrast to all of the other leaves from the other perennials in the border, but the blooms are also really dynamic because they change colors as they age. So for example, when they first open up, this particular variety is going to be this pretty bright or deep red, right? Then as it fades, it takes on a different coloring. So right here, it almost looks like it's fuchsia. And then it fades even more to this color where the yellow is now more prominent as the center opens up. So on any given plant, you look like you have multiple colors, which gives it a lot of depth and dimension. I think it is really beautiful. Look at that. So this variety here is called the Sassy Summer Sangria Yarrow, and it is hardy to -30 to -40 degrees Fahrenheit. It gets to be 30 to 36 inches in height and 36 to 42 inches in width. It does like full sun, and something that I've learned about Yarrow is that it likes a very well draining soil that leans dry, very similar to something like Russian sages and salvias and even sedums. If you give it too much moisture, they can rot at the crown and you will lose your plant. I have lost a couple due to them being planted in a bed that stays too moist. So if you have the proper conditions, these are such a gorgeous perennial. And these are in the 2-gallon Lowe's house brand container for $15.98. Another gorgeous perennial, the Delphinium. Now, if you are a fan of lavender flowers, blue flowers, and tall spike blooms, the Delphinium is a stunner. Look at these roughly gorgeous blooms. They are so beautiful. Now, don't let these compact little pots fool you. They will start to put on some height. You can see here as the bloom stalks start to shoot up, these are going to get anywhere from 3 to 4 feet in height and will require some staking, because if it gets too windy and they blow over, they can crack and then you'll risk losing your blooms. So if you plant them up against a fence, or if you plant them between other perennials that can provide them some support to keep them more upright, you'll be better off. You can see here that the pollinators love them. There was a bee trying to get a snack, and this variety here is the Guardian Lavender Delphinium. It's an upright perennial. It likes full sun. It is hardy to -30 to -40 degrees Fahrenheit, so zone 3 and up, and it gets to be 30 to 39 inches in height, and 36 to 39 inch spacing is required. $15.98 for this 1.5 gallon container. Here's another really pretty and vibrant daylily. This one is called South Seas, and it has this creamsicle orange color with a coral veining and a golden yellow throat. Now, daylilies, when they're done blooming, their foliage can get pretty unsightly, but all you have to do is cut them right down to the base and they'll flush back out with new foliage and look like a clump of ornamental grass. So really easy to maintain. They also hold moisture in their bulbs, so they're very drought tolerant and very prolific. Super easy to divide and spread around the yard or to share with friends. And so here is the information on the South Seas daylily. Most daylilies like full sun. These are $19.98 in the Lowe's house brand container. They bloom spring and summer, and this variety gets to be 30 inches in height, 30 inches in width, and it is hardy down to zone 3. Daylilies are super hardy perennials. And look at this gorgeous Rudbeckia. So pretty. Almost has a bit of a fall coloring to it, right? I grew the Sahara Rudbeckia from seed last year, fell in love with it, grew a bunch more this year, and it has similar deep sunset tones like this. They are gorgeous and a bit different than the traditional golden Rudbeckia that you see. Now, this variety here is called the Dakota Red Shield Rudbeckia. It likes full sun. It says it's an upright annual, so really important to pay attention to these tags, because the Sahara Rudbeckia that I grow is listed as an annual, but it did return for me. So it always depends on the winter that you have and the climate that you garden in. So these here are $19.98. They are listed as annual. They are only hardy up to 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So anything below that, it's not going to be hardy. And average mature size is 15 to 18 inches in height, 15 to 18 inches in width. These are gorgeous. Look at us. but a great way to add seasonal color to your borders for the whole season. So these listed as an annual will bloom nonstop. You do want to deadhead them, so when you see a bloom that is done blooming and it's looking old, just follow that stem down, cut it off so that your plant will continue to produce blooms for you for the rest of the season. But these are stunning. And look at these beauties. They're like a double decker. They have like 2 rows of petals, and they're also a type of Rudbeckia. Now let's check these out to see if they're listed as perennial or annual. Well, this one is listed as a perennial. This is the Sonora Rudbeckia. It likes full sun and hardy down to -10 to -20 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's non-hardy in zones 1 through 4. So zones 5 and up, this is considered perennial, and it is $15.98 for this 1.5 gallon container. And they're so, so pretty. Look at that. Now, pretty soon we're going to start seeing the traditional Rudbeckia like the Goldstrom being sold here at the garden centers, but currently they have more of these hybrid varieties and the annual varieties. This is another really pretty one. You can see this foliage looks really healthy. Look at that. These almost look similar to, say, a Coreopsis. Let's check out the variety on these. So this is, let's see, the Midnibeckia Flame Rudbeckia, also listed as perennial and hardy 0 degrees to -10 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's non-hardy in zones 1 through 5, meaning it would be hardy zones 6 and up. Average mature size 24 inches in height, 24 inches in width. Again, for full sun, and $15.98 for this 1 gallon container. And some hardy hibiscus. Now, I love these. As opposed to some of the annual hibiscus that you will find this time of year at the garden center, these hardy hibiscus are hardy, which means they're perennial and will return for you year after year. While these are considered a perennial plant, they actually grow as big as a shrub. So you only need one of these. They're like what I like to call a specimen perennial, where you only need one because they get so large, they're a standalone plant. This one is loading up with its buds. Look at that. You can see one here. And these get massive dinner plate size blooms that are really impressive. Very tropical looking. So they would look beautiful planted on the side of a patio or even by the deck of a pool. So this one here is the Summerific Evening Rose by Proven Winners. These are $17.98 for this 2 gallon container. They get pretty large, anywhere from 4 to 5 feet tall and wide. So you can see here, height 48 inches, spacing 54 to 60 inches, and they're hardy in zones 4 through 9 or down to -30 degrees Fahrenheit. They bloom midsummer through early fall, and they like full to part sun. I feel like they bloom best in full sun. I've had one planted in part sun before. It wasn't as prolific with its blooms. And so give it plenty of sun and you'll get a terrific show out of these in late summer. Mine blooms for me in August here in my zone 6B, 7A. They're also pretty late to break dormancy in spring. So say you buy one of these at the nursery now and next May rolls around and you still don't see it coming out of the ground, just wait. Towards the end of May, it usually starts popping through, and then by August, gorgeous blooms on these. You can see they're already starting to bud up. This Summerific Evening Rose Hibiscus also has really dark foliage, which offers another layer of interest, and this will persist through the fall. So you'll get some fall color out of this perennial as well. And they like moisture. So if you have soil that leans a little bit moist, they'll be really happy there because they're part of the mallow family, which typically likes more water. And look at this gorgeous shrub. This is a Rose of Sharon, and it has these beautiful white blooms that look like these ethereal tissue paper flowers, just so classic and elegant. Now, what's great about these newer varieties of Rose of Sharon is that they have been bred to be sterile, which I'll give you an example of why that's important. So my parents' house, their neighbors have a whole hedge of Rose of Sharon shrubs along their driveway. And every year when they bloom, they will dry out and drop seeds. In the next season, there are a ton of Rose of Sharon saplings and seedlings that have to be weeded out and dealt with. So they can become invasive pretty quickly. But these new varieties are less likely to do that, which is wonderful. And this one here is a beauty. The White Chiffon Rose of Sharon by Proven Winners. Look how big that shrub gets. So it gets 8 to 12 feet tall, 6 to 10 feet wide. So you want to give this some space for sure. And it is hardy in zones 5 through 9 or down to -20 degrees Fahrenheit. It wants full sun, so 6+ hours of sun per day. It is long blooming, double flowers, and it is a real beauty. Look at that. gorgeous. So these here are in a 2-gallon container for $27.98. So pretty. Another stunning rose of Sharon is the sugar tip. I actually have this one in my garden and I absolutely love it. What's unique about this one is that it has variegated foliage. Look at this. So you get even another level of interest with that variegated coloring. Has green with a bit of a yellow outer margin. This one is starting to load up with its bloom buds. You can see there, that one's starting to crack bud. It's going to be a beautiful pink bloom that is really ruffly. It's like double ruffled and looks like a rose actually. And when the shrub is all in bloom, look at that. It is a real showstopper. Now this one here gets to be, let's see, 5 to 6 feet tall, 4 to 6 feet wide. It is hardy in USDA growing zones 5 through 9. Or down to -20 degrees Fahrenheit. It likes full sun, so 6+ hours of sun per day. And you can see there that it says it is seedless under the features and long blooming. That seedless characteristic is really important because that means it will not drop seed and create more plants, making it invasive. So that's a good feature to look for when you are shopping for Rose of Sharon. But these are a stunner. And this is in a 2-gallon container for $27.98. Another gorgeous shrub is this weigela. This is the My Monet Purple Effect Weigela by Proven Winners, and it has this really pretty variegated foliage. The new growth gets these pink tips. It looks like a rainbow, and in the late spring, you will get these really pretty trumpet or bell-shaped blooms in this shade of purple pink. It's also pretty compact at about 3 by 3 in size. It says it's a dwarf weigela. You can see here it says 1.5 to 2.5 tall and wide, but I've had mine planted for upwards of 5 years now, and it's definitely more in that 3 by 3 size. But any plant or shrub will grow beyond its listed size if it's happy and over time. So these here are hardy in zones 4 through 6 or down to -30 degrees Fahrenheit. It likes sun or part sun, easy care, petite shrub, colorful foliage. It does have really pretty foliage. And these are a number 2 container for $27.98. Earlier in this season, we saw all of the macrophylla or mophead type hydrangeas. And now, as we get later into the season, we are seeing the smooth and the panicle type hydrangeas. So this one here is a smooth or arborescens type hydrangea. This is a newer variety here at the garden center this year. It's by First Editions, and this is called the Flowerful. And it says here, while you'll love it. White flowers cover the plant in summer, blooms stay upright even in rain and wind, and leaves stay clean and the flowers slowly fade to green. Now, typically with these old-fashioned Annabelle hydrangeas, the Annabelles have these large round blooms that are the arborescens or smooth type hydrangeas, but the Annabelles were pretty floppy. Anytime that it rained or got windy, with the weight of those large blooms, they would flop over and sit on the ground. So plant manufacturers, or plant breeders I should say, have been working on making stronger stemmed varieties of these arborescens or smooth type hydrangeas. So this one is by the First Editions called the Flowerful. Now this one is also 3 to 4 feet in height, 4 to 5 feet in width, and it likes full sun to part shade. Hardy in zones 3 through 8. 2 container, 2 gallons for $29.98. And look at these gorgeous Panicle type hydrangeas. These are a new to me variety called White Diamonds hydrangea by First Editions. I'm pretty certain that this was a perfume that my mom used to have named White Diamonds, but it is gorgeous. And speaking of perfume, the first thing that I noticed when I walked over here, besides them being really beautiful, was that they had a very light floral fragrance, which was really lovely. So these here have sort of an open type bloom. These panicles are really large. Look at that. Really beautiful. Reminds me very much of my Proven Winners Quickfire hydrangea. And here's a photo. It likes full sun to part shade, dark green leathery foliage, medium water needs, and hardy in zones 3 through 8. Gets to be 4 to 6 feet in height and 5 feet in width. And these really do make gorgeous cut flowers as well. Cut some, bring them inside, enjoy them when you're not in the garden, but inside your home. And they look so pretty. Look at these. Now these are in a 2 gallon container and they are $28.98. If you love hydrangeas, but you think that they can only be grown in shade, well, here is an option for you hydrangea lovers who have sun. the Panicle hydrangea. There are so many varieties out on the market now, and these are the perfect option for a part sun to full sun garden. I have a hedge of 3 little lime hydrangeas by Proven Winners that is planted in full sun, and it continues to do beautifully for me year after year. And it has a really long season of interest from the time that it leaves out to when it starts putting on its buds to when it blooms, and the way that it ages throughout the season all the way through the fall. It's stunning. And this is the first edition version of the little lime hydrangea, at least in my opinion. It is called the Little Hottie Panicle hydrangea. They grow in a very similar size of 3 to 5 feet tall and wide. They like full sun to part shade, and they are hardy in zones 3 through 8 or down to -40 degrees Fahrenheit. These are gorgeous. Look how many buds and blooms are on this plant. It is loaded to the brim. Gorgeous. To say the first edition's shrubs have really fun tags too. This one says, "You grow, girl." Always fun to turn the tag around and to see what it says. The other great thing about the Panicle hydrangeas, not only can they handle more sun, but they also come in different sizes now. So you're sure to find something that fits your garden. So the Little Hottie that we just looked at, and here is my beloved Little Lime hydrangea. Now the traditional limelight is a larger Panicle hydrangea, getting anywhere from 6 to 8 feet tall and wide, where the Little Lime has the same beautiful characteristics, but stays more compact at 3 to 5 feet tall and wide. It is hardy in zones 3 through 8 or down to -40 degrees Fahrenheit. Petite shrub, cold, hardy, and abundant blooms. Look at that coloring right there. So what I love about it is that when it first emerges with its blooms, it will have this bit of a limey green coloring, and then they go creamy white before going a bit pink as the summer progresses and we get cooler nights, and then they will go mauve in the fall and have a really antique look to them and just be completely stunning. They will provide interest in my garden from about June all the way through the end of October. And here is the Little Lime hydrangea. You can see in the back what it looks like, and inside was the photo of how it starts to age to pink with the cooler nights later in the summer. Now, some zones won't get that color change. If you're in the south and you get warm evenings throughout the rest of the season, it's possible that your hydrangea won't change for you, but in the cooler zones, I'm in a 6B, 7A, I luckily do get that really beautiful pink color change on my Panicle hydrangeas. And the Little Lime is in a 2-gallon container for $28.98. Some gorgeous macrophylla or mophead type hydrangeas. Look at these. Now, in many cases, the color that these blooms will be will depend largely on the acidity of your soil. A more acidic soil, you'll get more of a blue bloom, and a more alkaline soil, you will get more of a pinky purple bloom. Now, these here are the Endless Summer hydrangeas, and this variety is the Summer Crush, which I do believe tends to be a bit more pink purple. And it says compact with profuse, stunning blooms. It likes morning sun, afternoon shade, has an upright, rounded growth habit, hardy in zones 4 through 9, and it gets to be 18 to 36 inches in height and 18 to 36 inches in width. So it is very compact, and anyone can fit this in a corner of the garden, and it is just gorgeous. Look at that. Now, the Endless Summer hydrangeas are ones that will bloom on old and new wood. Some of the older varieties of these mophead type hydrangeas, if you prune them at the incorrect time, you could risk the blooms for next season. So it's really great that these are bred to have growth on both old and new wood, so you're less likely to miss out on blooms, right? But in general, if you have an older variety of these mophead type hydrangeas, say like the Nico Blue, the time to prune them would be right after they're done blooming. Any later than that, you can usually risk lopping off next year's blooms, because as soon as they're done blooming, they start putting out buds for the following season. But look at these beauties. This is a different variety. Let's see which one this is. Now, this is the Twist and Shout hydrangea. I can't find a spec card on this one, but I did see on the tag that reads it is a 3-gallon for $37.98, that it is called the hydrangea Twist and Shout. And this appears to be a serrata type or a mountain type hydrangea, where it has the blooms kind of around the center cluster here. You can see the habit of them. They have more of a loose type of bloom habit, and they are really beautiful as well. And here is another new to me variety of Endless Summer Hydrangea this year. It is a white variety that, according to the foliage, does look like, to me, like it would be a macrophylla type hydrangea based on this stem and foliage structure. So let's find a tag and see. Because of the white, it could also be a panicle, but I'm going with macrophylla. So here is the information. So the Dream Cloud is a reblooming hydrangea, which is wonderful. And it's a macrophylla. You can see right there, Endless Summer Dream Cloud reblooming hydrangea, hydrangea macrophylla. And it has an upright rounded growth habit, hardy in zones 4 through 9. And it gets 3 to 4 feet tall and wide with pure white reblooming blooms. Clean, classic beauty. Really pretty. And this is in a number 2 gallon container for $29.98. And crepe myrtles, which have only recently started to make an appearance here in my zone 6B, 7A. In the last couple of seasons, I've been seeing them a bit more because they haven't always been hardy here, depending on what type of winter we have. You can sometimes lose them. So this one here is the Twilight Magic Crepe Myrtle by First Editions. You can see it has a really pretty dark foliage with a pink bloom. This variety gets to be 12 to 14 feet in height, 6 to 8 feet in width. It does read as deer resistant with burgundy foliage, medium water needs, and it likes full sun, and it is hardy in zone 7 through 9. So I am in a zone 6B, cusp of 7A. They just bumped us up to a 7A, but it really does depend what kind of winter we have. In fact, I lost a ton of plants this last winter, and so if I were to plant this in my garden here in a zone 6B, 7A, it's possible if we have a really rough winter that this would not return for me next season. So always very important to know your growing zone and to review the tags to know whether or not something could survive and thrive in your gardening zone. Check out these gorgeous lilies. These are the Sunny Robin Oriental lily. Now, lilies come in different varieties as well. So you have the daylilies, which are different than these types of lilies. But you have the Asiatics, which are shorter in stature and will bloom first. And then you have the Oriental lilies, which are a bit taller and will bloom later. These are gorgeous. They look very much like my stargazer lilies, which are just budding up like this and will be blooming in the next couple of weeks. So this variety by Monrovia, the Sunny Robin Oriental lily, likes full sun. It is a perennial. And it likes semi-moist soil, gets 16 to 20 inches in height and 12 to 15 inches in width. Blooms summer and hardy down to -30 to -40 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, what's interesting about these is that they say the mature size is 16 to 20 inches in height, which typically fits the size range of the Asiatic lilies. But it's possible that they've bred these Oriental lilies to be a bit shorter. For those of you who might want to use these in the front of the border, this might be a great option. So $13.98 for these. And a couple other cool plants, including some evergreens. Now this one here is one that I have in my own garden and I really like it. It has a rounded, mounded growth habit. Gets to be about 3 to 4 feet tall and wide. It is the Fire Chief Arborvitae. And what's great about it is that it has multi-season interest as well. So evergreens will have interest in shape all season long, all year round, I should say, in the growing zones. But also it gets bronze in the winter time, and then in the spring it'll start turning more green and chartreuse with a bit of like a corally orange pink tip for the new growth. Really pretty shrub, and this one here is in a 1 gallon container for $16.98. It is hardy in zones, let's see, up down to a zone 5 or -10 degrees Fahrenheit. The Fire Chief Arborvitae, and this variety is the Congabi. And when I've shown the Arborvitaes in my videos recently, I've had some questions about whether or not I have come across the Proven Winners North Pole Arborvitae. And here they are at Lowe's. They have 4.5 gallon containers for $54.98. The North Pole Arborvitae is a pyramidal shaped evergreen. You can see how beautiful it looks there in that staggered pattern in a grouping. It's a fast growing arborvitae, has narrow pyramidal form, ideal for specimen or in a privacy screen. Instant elegance and year-round color for your landscape. Needs 6+ hours of sun per day. Hardy in USDA growing zones 3 through 8 or down to -40 degrees Fahrenheit. And they're pretty compact, at only 10 to 15 feet tall and 3 to 5 feet wide. Now, something to know about arborvitaes is that they do like moisture. So when you initially plant them, you want to make sure that you keep after your watering, even as you head into the winter. Make make sure that they're getting adequate water, especially important as they establish and when newly planted. But this is a really pretty variety. Look at it with snow offering all of that beautiful winter interest. More evergreens that grow in a rounded habit. Now this is great because if you like the look of something that grows round and provides year-round evergreen interest like a boxwood, those would need to be pruned to keep that round shape, where these naturally grow in that sphere type shape. So these here, the little giant arborvitae, like full sun. The little giant is related to the green giant, which means they are more deer resistant. These are $13.98. Looks to be about a 1 gallon, and they grow to be 4 by 4 in size, and they're hardy down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit or a zone 3. If you're still looking to add a privacy hedge or fence to your garden using a living fence idea with trees, this is a great option. So this is the green giant arborvitae. They have a really large, loose growth habit. They get pretty big and they grow fast. They're also deer resistant. I actually have a video on my channel that I created with the difference between the green giant arborvitae and the emerald green arborvitae that you can check out. I will link that below. So if you're planning on putting in a living fence either this summer or in the fall, this is a great video for you to check out so you know what you're dealing with. If you have deer, you certainly want to check out the green giant arborvitae, but you do need the space for them because they're quite large. So they like full sun, and they're hardy down to a zone 5 or negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit. And these here are 9 gallons for $119. Well, it just started to rain here at the garden center, but it actually feels so good and refreshing. So we're gonna keep going and let's check out some clearance. So here at Lowe's, their clearance structure is as follows. Anything that's less than $2 is going to be $1, $2 to $4.99 and so forth. You can see that. And anything $15 and up is going to be 50% off. So let's see what we can find. Starting with this plant right here that I actually added to my garden last year and maybe 2 years ago now, and I love it. It's a more compact version of a runkus or goat's beard called the Chantilly Lace by Proven Winners. And it likes sun or shade, $15.98. So this would now be half price at what, $8? And you can see that the blooms are all faded, but all you have to do is just cut them down, and you can see it has lots of healthy green foliage. The soil is moist, so it's still being cared for and watered. This would be a great plant to pick up at 50% off. And then they also have this really pretty salvia that I'm actually thinking about adding to my garden once I find the proper space for it. It's the Color Spires Crystal Blue. So this one at $12.98 would be right here, $7, and it looks really good. Now salvia, you can usually get a couple of flushes out of it. If you cut it down when you get home, get all of these spent blooms off of it, it will reflush for you and you'll get some more sporadic reblooming. The subsequent blooms are never as prolific as the first one, but it is a perennial that you can get another flush out of. And they have quite a few of those still looking really good. You can see the foliage still looks nice and green. And I always stick my finger in the soil to make sure that they're being cared for. And some dianthus. Again, this one, you can see the foliage looks really great. It's just that the blooms are past their prime, so they have made their way onto the clearance rack. So these at $12.98 would also be $7, and this is the Fruit Punch Black Cherry Frost Dianthus. Hardy in zones 4 through 9. They get to be 12 to 14 inches for spacing and 8 to 10 inches in height. Perennial. There's actually still a couple with some blooms on them, so you can see what they look like. And let's see what else we can find. They have these really cool oak grasses. Well, at least they look like oak grass. They also could look like a carex. It's Dixieland maiden grass. It likes full sun. It's an ornamental grass. So these at $9.98 would be $4. And what zones are they for? Down to a zone 5 or negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit. These still look to be in really good shape as well. And how tall are they? 4 to 5 feet. I think we just looked at that, right? 4 to 5 feet, 3 to 4 wide. So these would need some space. So you don't need more than, you know, a couple, unless you want to do a big drift of them somewhere. Clematis, and these still look really good. The ones in my garden actually all look like this right now, but you can just cut off that stem there and it still looks relatively healthy. This is what the spent blooms look like. Isn't that really cool? It looks like almost like a spun thread or something. I even find that the bloom heads, once they're spent, are really interesting. And different varieties of clematis bloom at different times. They also are different heights, so you'd have to look at the tag to determine. This one is called Aseo clematis, and it gets to be 6 to 9 feet in height, 6 to 9 feet in width. and hardy down to zone 4 or negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's over $15, so this would be 50% off at about $8.50, which is a great price. And to prune your clematis, it's important to know which group they belong to. So they're going to grow a group 1, 2, or 3, and depending on the variety and the group, that is how you know when to prune it. What else can we find here? Some daisies. So these are Western Star Shasta Daisy. These are 18 inches in height, 18 inches in width. They're $8.98, so they would be $4. Again, they still look really good. And Shasta daisies are one of those plants that if they drop seed, they will continue to propagate itself, right? So you'll get tons of self-seeded Shasta daisy babies. You just let these bloom heads dry out, let these seeds drop, and you will get a bunch of seedlings in and around that plant. Some tachyon blue bellflower. These are a type of campanella. These are also prolific self-seeders, and they look really good. You just take it home, clean up all of these dead blooms or dried up blooms, and you still have lots of green here and a nice looking perennial. Oh, and some bee balm or monarda. Now these have a really fragrant foliage, really pretty blooms. The pollinators love them. And this is the Leading Lady Amethyst by Proven Winners. So at $15.98, it would be 50% off at about $8, which is a great price for this 1 gallon, and it will come back beautifully for you next season. You just want to make sure that you give monarda proper spacing, bee balm, because it can be susceptible to powdery mildew, although like I said earlier, these newer varieties by Proven Winners have been bred to be more mildew resistant. Now when I'm looking at the clearance rack, I'm checking for a couple of things. I want to make sure that most of the foliage still looks pretty healthy, that the plant has been watered, that the soil has some moisture, that there's some indication of some new growth. If I were to pick a couple of plants here, I would stay away from this one, which has a lot of dry leaves on it, and I would go with something like that. Okay, so in this lineup, I would pick any one of those 3 and skip over that one. Just a little tip for shopping the clearance rack. Some peonies. When we were here last, maybe a few weeks back, I had said that as soon as they're done blooming, chances are they'll hit the clearance rack because they're just not as appealing anymore, right? When they don't have pretty flowers to look at. But this is a great time to pick them up and get some blooms next spring. So this is the Carl Rosenfield, which is a deep fuchsia, almost red peony. $19.98, so this is now $10, and this variety will most peonies, the herbaceous ones, get to be 3 to 4 feet tall and wide. Now they do need some support, so as soon as you see the eyes popping through the soil in the spring, you want to offer them some staking with either some bamboo or a peony cage to keep them nice and upright, because those large beautiful blooms can make the plant flop, especially if it gets windy or it rains. July is definitely the time to hit the clearance rack, my friends. Look at this. Some Midnight Masquerade Penstemon by Proven Winners. This is a gorgeous penstemon. So this variety here, it is perennial, has darker foliage, gorgeous bell-shaped blooms. There's actually still one right here that you can kind of see what it looks like. The pollinators love these so much. And even as it dries out, these stems make really beautiful cut pods to put in cut flower arrangements as a filler. So this variety here gets to be 36 to 40 inches in height, needs 28-inch spacing, and it is hardy in zones 3 through 8 or down to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And these would be $8, which is a great price, and they still all look relatively healthy. There are some lilies on the clearance rack because they are also now done blooming. I actually purchased my Tiny Diamonds Asiatic Lily by Monrovia here, also on clearance several years ago, and it has done beautifully for me every year since. So these were $10.98, so I believe these would be about $7. Some phlox and some daylilies also on the clearance rack. So they have the opening act white phlox for $8, for 50% off that $15.98. They also have the opening act ultra pink, which was beautiful when we looked at it last month and we did our Lowe's walkthrough. And they have some of the Nephophia, and this one is the Pyromania Solar Flare, which has a really bright yellow upright bloom. And even when their blooms are done, they have this grass-like foliage that makes it look like an ornamental grass. So really great perennial. And that would also be $8. Some really great finds here at the Lowe's clearance rack in early July. So I hope that you can find some of these in the clearance rack near you as well. They have some shade plants here as well, mostly hosta and a few astilbe. These astilbe look beautiful. I actually purchased an astilbe on clearance a couple of years ago. looks very similar to this, and it's done beautifully for me. Now these are regular price still, and they are in the Lowe's house brand container, 1.5 gallon for $15.98. But these are a wonderful shade plant. There's not many plants that will offer really beautiful blooms in the shade, but Astilbe is one of them. You get these spike plume type blooms this time of year, usually end of June heading into the beginning of July. They do love moisture. I find that they do a lot better with adequate water and fertilizer. So at the very end of winter, very early spring, I will go through and apply a granular fertilizer around the plant, scratch it into the soil, and they usually perform beautifully for me that way. This is the all-purpose granular fertilizer that I like to use on my perennials and plants. It's the Espoma Organic Plant Tone. It is granular, so all you do is spill it around the drip edge of the plant. That is the outer edge of where the plant reaches. Scratch it into the soil, and as it rains, this will break down and feed your plants. And here at Lowe's, you get a 8-pound bag for $14.98. They also still have lots of annuals available, so if some of yours have perished or you want to add some more color for the remainder of the season, they have these ready fill containers for $16.98, and they also have a sale on some of their quart size annuals at 2 for $10. So I hope that you've enjoyed checking out what my Lowe's has in stock in July. I hope that you can find some of these varieties near you. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I will catch you in the next one.